everybody, it's Tammy with Tammy on Time, back with another Trilogy Education Services Data Analytics and Visualization Bootcamp. Actually, I'm going to be talking about up to week 18 or 19. I have graduated from the program, but that's just entirely too much information to pack into one video, so I'm going to break this up into two. So today we're going to talk about up to week 18 or 19, which is going to take us to about the last up to the last 4 weeks of the boot camp. So first off, I'll start with kind of what we've been working with and what tools and languages we've been learning. So we've done some web scraping. We've talked about HTML, CSS, learned how to do that, learned how to integrate Bootstrap with HTML and CSS. We've also jumped into SQL, NoSQL, and SQL Alchemy. We've started using databases like Postgres and MongoDB. In addition to that, there's been so much stuff. We use pandas. We started using Jupyter notebooks. We learned how to set up a Flask app. We've gone over splinters, API requests, JSON, just a lot of information. But everything that you've learned up until this point plays into your ETL project. So for your ETL project, you're gonna go out into the interwebs and find data that you wanna use to build a data. So our project was happiness score versus coronavirus. And so what we did was we used the information from the World Happiness Project, which assigns a happiness score to each country based on a lot of different factors. So we wanted to see how the coronavirus, how the government has been responding to the coronavirus, how all of that plays into a country's World Happiness Score. So for that, we extracted data from Wikipedia using web scraping. There was also some CSV files directly from the worldhappiness.org's website. And then we had 2 data sets from Kaggle that we brought in. So we used Jupyter notebooks to do our data cleaning. And then we also used another tool to build our ERD diagram and make sure that all of our primary and foreign keys were set up and things like that. So then we created the schemas for our database using pgadmin and then loaded all the information from Jupyter notebooks into our database. It's a lot more involved than that, but that is, for the most part, the gist of the project. Extract, transfer, and load. It's very common in the tech world, and you've probably seen job descriptions that say they want you to be familiar with ETL, where that is what it is. For this project, we didn't have a presentable, we didn't have a presentation, we didn't have anything tangible. Well, we had something tangible, but we didn't have anything to present. It was just do the project, you upload it and turn it in, and then it's graded. So after the ETL project, we switched over to start coding using JavaScript. We use libraries like Plotly, D3, geomapping with Leaflet and Mapbox, lots of different JavaScript libraries. In my personal opinion, I do not see why so much emphasis is put on Leaflet and D3. I mean, if you're still using that, I don't see why anybody would use that for the purposes that we used it for, when Tableau does that so much quicker and so much better. So I guess it's just one of those things. It's good to say that you know, but nobody's using it. So to me, it just kind of seemed like a waste of time. I think there was only 2 or 3 weeks in between the ETL project and project 2. So after JavaScript, you jump right into project 2. And this is where everything you've learned in the course culminates. You're going to build a full stack web app off of the database that you created in the ETL project. Now you can create another database, but our team decided to use the database that we had already put so much time and energy into in the ETL project, and that just kind of made sense for everybody for the most part. I think there was only maybe one group that did not use a database that they had created in the ETL project. And so the parameters were, like I said, a full stack web app, so you're going to have an actual website, and then you're going to use D3 and Leaflet to visualize something from that database and tell a story. So for our website, we had more information on happiness score versus the pandemic. We had a demographics box that you could select a country and then information about that country would show up. My contribution was the leaflet map. So it was just a global map. And for all the countries that we had data for, there was a marker, a green circle. And when you clicked on that marker, it gave you the country name and the number of COVID deaths. But then the size of the marker tells you the happiness score. So the larger the marker means that that country had a larger happiness score, smaller had a smaller happiness score. And then I overlaid those two. So you've got happiness score is one layer, number of deaths is another layer, and then you overlaid those for the same countries, and you could see if there was any correlation between the number of deaths, the number of COVID deaths, and the happiness score of a country. And then we had a bubble chart, which you could look at number of new cases and number of new deaths. And kind of play with it, and you could also click on that marker and it would give you more information about the country, the population, and sort of the same information. And then finally, there's also web design. So somebody has to design the front end web page as well. And then in addition to that, we were also asked to use one library that we have not used in class as well. And then once all that was done, we created a database instance using AWS, and then deployed our website to Heroku, which is like a web hosting site, so that you could have an actual website that anybody could go to. This project was the most hands down stressful thing that I've had to deal with literally in my entire life. It was just a mess from the start. There were so many holes, there was so many miscommunication from our instructors, from my teammates, it was just a mess. So before this project even started, the words AWS and Heroku were not even uttered. We found out that we were going to be deploying to Heroku and creating database instances with AWS when the project was introduced. And it was communicated with like a diagram just to kind of show us how everything works. And then they gave us a video to instruct us on how to actually get everything connected and up and running. And this is kind of where things start to go downhill. After we've got our visualizations done and our website is designed, of course, we started trying to go through this video, and I mean, nothing works, right? It was just mass chaos. And one of the most frustrating things during this time was trying to get help from our instructor. I just felt like every question was met with a diss or a dig. So I was responsible for deploying to AWS and Heroku. And I had watched the video and it still was not working, and I still was not able to connect them. And I remember asking for help in Slack. And my instructor was like, well, it's clear that you don't know what you're doing, so just let somebody else do it. And that just really made me feel incapable. And it wasn't that I didn't know how to do it. It was that, once again, I had been given inadequate instruction to do it. And it wasn't just me. There were 4 other people on my team, and none of us could get it done. So to say that I didn't know what I was doing and to pass it off on somebody else so that they could do it was just not the right answer to give. The person who was assigned to take over the task ended up asking me to meet with him on Slack on the side so we could try to help, so I could try to help him figure out what was going on, because he didn't know what the hell was going on either. And so to make a long story short, we worked together. We still were not able to get, this is AWS specifically, we still were not able to get our database instance created in AWS. So finally, after basically begging to get help, we had our TA come in and, tinker with some things. And it turns out that this was not only over our heads, our TA was not able to get it corrected. Our instructor came in, she was not able to fix it. Everybody's Googling things. It probably took about an hour and a half for us to get it fixed, but we finally did. But that just really left a bad taste in my mouth, because I'm asking for help and everything is like, oh, well, you just don't know what you're doing. You're just doing something just to do it. Just let somebody else do it, instead of listening to me tell you that something is not working, right? At one point when they were trying to debug this thing and figure out why the database wouldn't transfer to AWS, they were kind of chatting, our TA and our instructor were kind of chatting amongst themselves, and they're like, yeah, man, I just really, AWS, they change their interface every 3 months. Now, the video that you gave me to go off of was 1.5 years old. So if you give me a video from 1.5 years ago, knowing that AWS changes their interface every 3 months, How do you expect me to watch this short video and be able to complete this? It's almost like we were just doomed from the start. For that, during the process of all this, my temper just got the best of me. Our instructor had been out because she had been sick. She came in kind of like guns a-blazing. Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done this? And yeah, I kind of said some things that I wish that I would have said much politer. And so I apologized to her afterwards, and she emailed me back and said, you know, don't worry about it. This happens every project with every team. And for me, that was a key indicator that our class or our team wasn't the only person struggling. This is a clear pattern. And for some reason, you know, they don't want to address it. In addition to all of that, our team dynamics were just off. We had people who weren't pulling their weight. We had people who wanted to be the boss when it was convenient for them. It was just a lot going on with the team dynamics. And this is one thing that I can say that our instructor was good at. She was kind of perusing in our Slack and saw who was slacking off, and put a message in our Slack that, you know, she had been monitoring the messages, and it seemed like this person and this person had not been pulling their weight. And, you know, she basically called them out and lit a fire under their behinds. So it was just a lot going on with this project. And I really wish that our instruction team wasn't so passive. I think that sometimes they just get caught up in just doing the same thing over and over and over. And also they seem to be in a little over their heads in terms of the level of frustration. And so what I found out was that our team was not the only team that was in mass chaos. We presented our projects, and we kind of have a side Slack DM where just like a handful of students are in this DM, and so we kind of commiserate together and just talk about things in there away from, you know, the main channel where we're doing all of our talking with all of our classmates. I found out that I was not the only person who kind of lost their temper with our instructor. 2 other people did, and that was kind of telling. So if that many people is having all these issues, that means that the problem is not with us, it's with the information that's been given to us. And unfortunately, our instruction team kind of really just didn't want to hear it. Basically, it's like, here's what you need to do, go figure it out. Spent a lot of time Googling, a lot of time on Stack Overflow, and I'm fine with that because I know that it's a boot camp, right? And so, you know, it's not like you're taking a college course where there's going to be a whole lot of handling. But then on the flip side, don't give me a video from a year and a half ago when you know that it's updated every 3 months and tell me to go figure it out with that. I think that's unfair. So as I said before, our instructor had missed some classes because she was out sick. And toward the end of the project, before we were getting ready to present, I noticed that she had stopped communicating in Slack altogether. So finally, it's presentation night, and we're ready to present our projects. And we log in, and only our TA is there. And that's kind of telling or concerning because your projects are a big deal. And the TA and the instructor are always there. So we present our projects, we get our feedback. There's no mention of why our TA is there by himself. Then toward the end, he starts getting really antsy. He's stumbling over his words. And he says that our instructor is not able to be there because she's sick. Now, she did miss some previous days from being ill before, but something about this just did not feel right. He was very antsy. He was stumbling over his words. He couldn't look at the camera directly. I knew there was more to it than just she was sick, and that's the reason why she wasn't there that particular night. So come to find out, that was like on a Wednesday. That Saturday we come, the student success manager and this new guy is there, and he's presented as our now 3rd instructor. So at this point, we're about 5 months into the 6-month boot camp, and this is now our 3rd instructor that we have had. So, you know, I don't know what happened in Project 2. And this is my own personal opinion, I really feel like the stress of Project 2 from 5 teams was just more than our instructor was willing to put up with. And it's unfortunate because she was a very good instructor. For my learning style, she was perfect. She was very detailed, very thorough, and everything that she presented very well prepared, but she could also be very passive. and sometimes could come off rude, which I never took it that way because I understand there are cultural differences. And so I never took her to be rude. There was a point in the class where someone felt like she was being rude, and so they talked to the student success manager's boss about that. Now, there's a lot more that goes into that. Ultimately, nothing came of it, but I just think that all of these different pieces was just more than she was willing to bear. So that takes us up until about the last month of the boot camp. And at this point, I am just like, you know what? There's 4 weeks left in this thing. I don't care if we have a different instruction team every week at this point. I've paid all this money. Just let me, get through this so I can just move on with my life. The amount of time and stress that this thing has caused me is really untold. I've developed eczema on my hands. My level of stress has been something that I have never experienced before. And at this point, I'm just ready to get it over. So that's where we're at. I'm gonna stop it there, and I'll come back and make a separate video on the last 4 weeks and talk more about what we've done in our capstone project. If you all have any questions, please feel free to email me. I've been getting a lot of questions on career services. That is what people email me for the most. So if you guys have questions on that or anything else, please feel free to email me. And that's all for today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video, which will be the conclusion of the 6-month bootcamp.